everyone. So it's been a hot minute since I got in front of the camera. I'm having problems progressing with my legit kits. I will go into a video later about that, hopefully when I finish. But today I'm working 9 patches, and 9 patches are easy and they're quick. Let me show you. So basically I'm starting out with my bin, my scrap bin. For those of you who don't know, as I get scraps, I cut them down, and I cut them down into usable pieces. So I cut them down to 2.5, 2 and 1.5 inch squares, to where if I run into a problem on this quilt, I have something to sew and I don't sit idle, and I'm not paralyzed, which I'm not gonna lie, I have been a little bit paralyzed. So this bin is full of all different colors that I've worked recently. A lot of these squares were cut over a year ago, I'm gonna say, when I did my triple Irish chain. I'll put a picture of that right here. And some of these I've just cut a bunch of the neutrals. My neutral bin was getting really compacted with older fabrics, and so I just cut them up. No matter what the size was, I cut them up and then put them in this bin. And now I have all these blocks. Most of these blocks I sewed probably back in 2019. I was at a retreat. For those of you going to a retreat, I highly recommend the following. I highly recommend reaching out and getting to know the people that are attending retreat before you go to retreat. And you somehow figure out, whether it's on Facebook or whatever, you all decide to make a block. Make a block. 9 patch. This is what we did. Simple 9 patch, 2.5 inch squares. Everybody who decides to participate, you make that many squares. And then to pass the squares out, you take your stack and you put it on a table, and everybody puts their stack on the table. And then single filely, when you're at retreat, you go and you pick up these squares, and then you have an instant quilt. And it commemorates the memory of all the people that were at retreat. And a lot of these people you meet, and they are amazing people, and that is what I'm sewing today. So the retreat I went to was a toga. For those of you who don't know what toga stands for, it stands for Treadle On Gathering Academy, and this group unfortunately dissolved in 2019 was the last meeting. 2020, they moved it from Northeast Texas to Texarkana. Texarkana is too far for me to go. I aim to get back there one day, but then it requires hotel accommodations and what have you. But when the toga group met, you put your name, the date, and the vintage machine that you sewed it on. So, brilliant idea. You don't have to do this with your retreat blocks. However, I highly recommend putting the date and the name of the person. For fun, you could have them write their sewing machine on there. It doesn't matter. This is a very enjoyable event. It's unforgettable, and I love it. And then if you notice, some of these kind of have a theme. This looks like it was a theme of like a jelly roll. Everybody uses their scraps, and I love this. And here's some that I have made. These were made again back a while ago. Love these fabrics. I love this happy fabric too. How will I put these together? I debated on just sewing them together, but that loses the 9 patch, and I want to really commemorate the 9 patch, so I will probably put sashing around all of these. But these are very easy to make, and let me show you how I made these. Easy peasy. I spin all my seams. That means that if I do each block the same, if I do this block with my darks in the corner, and then I do my blocks with light in the corner, then these seams will automatically nest. And so every other block can be light, dark, light, dark. Because you have this on every other side when you go to assemble your quilt, if you don't want to add sashing. You have 2 sides to choose from that will automatically nest, provided you press them right. And it makes the quilt go to bed a whole lot easier. Recommendations. So, my scraps. All of these were starched, and then, forgive my mess, hung on this dowel rod. The dowel rod now needs to be eliminated. I usually take them when the dowel rod tips. I take my scraps and I put them in a Ziploc bag for later trimming. Sometimes these scraps, like I know for a fact that this and this are 2.5-inch strips. I know for a fact I can go ahead and cut those down. Hey, look at that. That's a segue into another video coming soon. So you can see what I've worked recently. I've worked some purples, some golds, and then here we have my unfolded stack that as I pull fabrics and press them and use them, I have to go back and fold them and then put them back in their appropriate colorway. Let's go in there and show you that. Alright, here it is, my scrappy bin. Normally the lid's on it. So as you can see, like my yellows are segregated from my greens. And yes, these bags have been around the block for a while. This one, the zipper thing actually ripped off. But I use it as long as I can. Here's some fabrics that I need to sort. Sometimes I do have a problem with sorting fabrics because it's not just obvious what bag they go into. But then if I need to pull a red, I've got a couple bags of red. There's a couple bags of pink. I can go right to it. How big are these pieces? They're less than a yard. Most of these are less than a quarter, fat quarter. Some of them are just scraps from some scrap bag that I bought. So let's see how big this one is. So this one is probably a little less than half a yard. This is how I keep it. Does this work for everybody? No. Is it a lot of work to keep it like this? Yes. Let me go to my other spot. So my other spot is right above it. This is where all of my fat quarter bundles, my 1 yard bundles, all of my themed fabric go. And I've got quite a bit in there. I'm not going to get in there for right now. And then here are my bins of scraps. And there's my 2-inch bin of scraps. And I am working a quilt with 3.5-inch scraps down there. And then here is my dresser. On the top, I store all the quilts. If there are quilts ready to go to a show or to be hung somewhere, they are put in pillowcases and the family knows those cannot be used. I also have scraps of hexies where I just go ahead and glue base them and they are ready to stitch together if I so need to. And then here is the remainder of my fabric. I have 2 drawers of neutral, and you can tell that this is kind of squirrely. It's kind of getting away from me, and this looks a lot better than what it did. I've got some bigger cuts in here. These are all newer fabrics that I've gotten. And then some of this fabric just won't dye. It just won't dye. How long have I had this? Since 2008. But I don't want to cut it up because I have actively used that fabric. I have had this fabric. How long have I had this fabric? Does it say? It does not give a date. Basically, it's barbed wire and cows. I've had this fabric for a while. I like it because it's a neutral. I do use this. Some of these neutrals are harder to use, like this one. This one, I probably need to cut this one up. Those are really hard neutrals to use. And then here's my other drawer of scraps. Yes, it's untamed, but it's more tamed at the bottom. I recently bought some Vegas strips, and I've got them in the packages there. Those are going to be excellent size to make scrappy quilts, to where maybe I can get rid of some of this. This I've had since 2018. This fabric just will not dye, because when I'm cutting it up in smaller pieces, sometimes purple is the focal, sometimes the neutral is the focal, sometimes it's half and half. This fabric is very hard to use. So those are usually the fabrics that I end up not using or have left. Let's see, what have I got back here? This fabric, I have used it, but it is so garish. It is like a metallic gold. I don't know if you can see the metallic. This is very hard to use. It makes the quilt block look very, very busy. It's hard to use. I have a cave drawer. This drawer is a little bit messy. And I recently got a fat quarter bundle of this, and I will use this for something. But I did buy a cave scrap bag, and I think I got this from Fat Quarter Shop. I picked out all the small pieces, gave all the big pieces to my mom. This is actually a 108 backing, and it's just a trimmed piece. Lots of pieces in here. I will get to this one day, but the fabrics are beautiful, so I do want to get to that. I have my fat quarter drawer, which is starting to thin out, which is good. Some of this, I have no idea how I'm going to use it. No idea. Lots of batiks. I just haven't used those yet. Those will make a pretty quilt when the time comes. I've got some cotton and steel in here that's lingering, and it's elderly, and I have no idea what I'm going to use that for. It came with turquoise, and I love turquoise, so this one just lingers. I've got a lot of electric elements from Tim Holtz. I don't know how I'm going to use those. I've got leftover fat quarters when Sandy Gervais was with Moda Fabrics. I love these fabrics. I have a quilt made with them. Okay, you get the idea. That's my organization, and then we come down here. These are my bigger cuts of fabric. Some of them are still packaged. I try to keep them folded nice and neatly. I do get in and use these, so they are there. Some of this is spoonflower fabric. Some of this has been washed, some of it hasn't. Some of it's been free. This was free. This was free. This was free. This was free. That was free. I don't like to, and that was free. I don't like to pass up the opportunities of free fabric, but if I do keep them for a long period of time and don't use them, I do pass them on to somebody else. And they're not in any color order. Here's some more Sandy Gervais. Freebie, 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 freebie. I have all my orphan blocks. Lots of orphan blocks. I need to do something with them. I have lots of work and I haven't done anything with it. That's a tractor. I need to do something with all these. I've got my gem blocks that are orphan blocks. I don't know what I'm going to do with those. I just need to make a simple wall hanging. Hey, there's a 9 patch. Excellent. A nine patches for the quilt I'm working now. We'll grab that. These have a story. So COVID came. We were originally going to meet in April of 2020 for the Texarkana toga. And these were going to be the blocks that were the swap blocks. And then we never could go. So those are orphaned. Lots of orphan blocks. I've got one under batting. I've got my 3D flower block. Love that one. So my orphan blocks are here. And again, more fabrics. My grandpa's bandanas. A doily my grandma made. I will put all that into something one day. It just isn't jumping out at me. What? And here is my feed sack drawer. Back when I was 20, I got in my grandma's chest full of fabric, and she had these 2 feed sack prints, and they were not very big. I wanted to make a pair of shorts, so I did. I used complimentary fabric. They probably looked clownish, and as you can see, I wore them out. But I do not want to get rid of this fabric. It is so soft. I used all of the trimmings and made a ruffle. There was no waste in any of this fabric. And then I have all of these feed sacks that I've collected. Most of these cost nothing. And one day I will make a feed sack quilt. Let's see. I actually have that feed sack that will get used. Here are actually prints of old feed sacks. These are not reproductions. These are actual feed sacks. And then all of these are feed sacks. Either they were my grandmother's. I know this was my grandmother's. I think all of these I bought at an estate sale. These 2, and then I have all of this, which I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this, but it's all feed sack. And then I have some straggler fabrics that I have in here that are just larger cuts of fabric that I've just folded up. Okay, now I'm back. I have sorted all of the pieces, the orphans. They will get put in there. That helped. That added to the pile nicely. For whatever reason, I had ripped this out. I think this was at the edge of the quilt. That's why it's ripped out. And then I did not use it. So I will sew this back together with this. And it will make it into this scrap quilt. And then I have this to build off from. And that to build off from. So today, I am making 9 patches. I wonder how many I can get done. Alright, I got those sewed up. This piece might have been a little bit too short. We'll have to figure that out, but I now have a nice stack. Let me count them. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, so I have 71 blocks. And then I've got these, so 71. Let's do some math. Let me get a piece of paper. My blocks would end up being 8 by 8. So 8 times 6. Hang on. Okay, if I increase part of my blocks by 2 inches or 2.5 inches, which they would finish at 8 by 8, I could go 8 across and 8 down, and that would be 64. So I do still have work to do, and I have plenty of stuff to go. Everybody works differently. Because I have a 40-hour work week job with an additional 10-hour commute, I am away from the house 50 hours a week. Because I homeschool my children, they are here all the time, and so that leads to more messes during the day, more dishes. So this is why my area is a mess. I choose priorities, and my priority some days is to clean and some days it is to sew. Whatever I decide to do, it is my house. I do what I can, and this to me, for me, does scream happiness. Even though it may look like a disaster, it's functional for me and it works for me. It is very appealing to look at someone's nice, neat workspace, but in my opinion, money for show. In reality, they may be nice, neat freaks. They may not. They may just clean it up to make it look like that. I don't have time to clean my desk off. If I have a project on it, I'm going to continue to work my project until I get it done. So, update. Here it is a week later, and voila, I have a full quilt almost done. I lack one border going all the way around. I will finish that this morning. Putting away the legit kits was really stymieing me. Something up here. I don't know what. I guess maybe because I have done so many scrappy quilts that process is just natural to me, and the other is unnatural to me. I don't know what to say. I mean, I'm usually not working with pieces that are as big as a yard. I've done so many scrappy quilts. So maybe that was getting me down. Maybe that was just getting in my head and messing with me. So I will post a picture here and show you what a difference a week makes. And it was me, but it wasn't me. I wanted to sew, but I didn't want to sew that. I'm happy. I have sewed all week. I've come home and sewed in the evenings. I haven't done that in I don't know how long. Okay, I took each one of the people's 9 patches and I framed them in a star. And I did that for each of the individuals who participated that year. I went around it with another 2.5 inch border twice. I did a little, I guess, weird star thing in the corners. All 4 corners have that. And then I took my remaining 9 patches and went around that. And if you look, I ran out of design wall, and so just pinned those to my wall. I'm still getting this done. I still have about 7 9 patches to sew, and I've got 3 of those done already. So I say 7, maybe it's more than 7. I'll have to count. Anyway, I'm liking this. I've used my orphan blocks. This came together marvelously fast because of my scraps. And now let me show you my scrap bin. So I've got my long arm full of the other scrappy quilt. I've got to get down there and get that done. The weather's starting to warm up and it's starting to be the correct temperature and the correct humidity. So I need to get down there and finish that to where I can start quilting on this. This quilt means so much, and I'm very pleased with how this turned out. So the stars, let me turn that back around. So these stars, the border is actually made up of a 10-inch layer cake square. I always buy neutrals in 10-inch and jelly roll strips, and I didn't feel like getting out my jelly roll strips, so I broke into my layer cakes. You basically press and iron this, and when you press it, you are gonna iron it out, kind of stretching and warping the fabric to where you will have a 10-inch square. Measure your square and make sure that you can get your 4 cuts out of it, or 5 pieces. Is it 5 pieces? No, your 4 strips out of it. Each side is a strip. Okay, this is 6.5 inches, so you would cut your 2.5-inch strips from your layer cake, and then you would turn around and cut 4 2.5-inch squares from those, and then 4 6.5 by 2.5-inch rectangles, and you pretty much use all of the layer cake piece except for maybe an inch or so, which I don't keep that, it went in the trash. And again, all of these squares were scraps in that scrap bin, so I've got all of my scraps that have gotten used. I've got this weird fabric, and I finally got to use it, and it looks halfway decent. All of my scraps got used, and I tried to stay with the theme of each block. Some of these I'm not very pleased with my contrast. That one especially. It shows up really nice on the camera, but when you step away from it, it doesn't show up. This one too. So purples is purple, greens are green. You know, I tried to stay with the theme. This is why I love scrappy quilting, because you can get really loud with the neutral fabrics. And it just makes this so homey and homely, and I will treasure this for quite some time, and this will be a quilt that I use. And if anybody has any tips or tricks on how to keep this from washing out, I'm pretty sure this was done with permanent ink, but I know that ink can be removed, so if anybody has any tips on how to keep that good and forever in the quilt, let me know. I did have to take apart one of these 9 patches because the seam allowance was not correct, so I now don't remember which one that was. Looking at it, I know 2 of these, when I ironed them, the fabric was polyester blend, so it kind of melted. I'm really pleased with how this is turning out, and again, I used all my scraps. I went and got in my neutral drawer and cut down these strips and just used the bare minimum of scraps that I had, and as you can see, that's the part I still need to sew together, all of this strip here. So for those of you who have scraps and you're trimming your scraps as you go, this went together in 1 week. Let me get the calculations for you and insert them here in text. I don't know how big this is. I'd have to do some math. But I seriously thought about continuing on with the stars of this, but I decided, no, I'm going to leave the stars as the superstars of that event, and then just keep the 9 patches all the way around. And I'm really, really liking how that turned out. Let me know what you think. You like this? Some people, this is not their style, and I completely understand that everybody has their own style, and this is my style. Totally scrappy, grainy quilts. I would call this a traditional scrappy quilt, where it's truly everything scrappy on it. I debated on framing this with just jelly roll strips that ran the whole thing. I did debate that, but I thought, no, I'm gonna keep it scrappy, and that's what I did, and I really like how it turned out. I will insert a picture here once I get it done, and yeah, 1 week. 1 week makes a huge difference. For anyone who commented on the legit kits, I so appreciate your comments. They were well thought out. It was great advice, and I took it. I just quit working it. I put it up, and I have been productive. And it really makes me wonder why I was fighting it. I guess because at the cost of it, and thinking that I had to continue on with it for the channel, because there are people that wanted to see it done, to see what it looked like, and they're just gonna have to wait. I don't even know if I'm gonna finish it now, because maybe this is something that I do take down to our sewing group, and I sew with others to where I'm not sewing alone. They're going to be commenting on my process and cheering me on. Maybe that's what I need, because I don't have any cheerleaders in the house. The children and the man of the house, they do not cheer me on with my quilting. They don't understand it. They think it's stupid, yet they are all wrapped in a nice warm quilt at the end of the day. So they say that. I don't know if they mean it or not. I don't know if they're giving me a hard time. I suspect they're just giving me a hard time. But I really like how this turned out, and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching.